I have Manny Navarro back on the show, college football writer with The Athletic, to talk some ACC football. Manny, who do you want to start with? I'll let you pick. You want to start with Syracuse or do you want to start with Miami?
Well, both of these programs have been in a bit of trouble lately, right?
Yes.
So I'll let you guys pick. Where do you want to start?
All right, we'll start Syracuse since we've been talking about them all week. And, obviously the quarterback change did not go the way Fran Brown had hoped. Ricky Collins 0-4 as a starter. He decides to go to the freshman, the lacrosse player, Joe Filardi, to try and find a spark, and it did not go well. 4 for 18 passing for 39 yards. What did you make? What were your takeaways from that Syracuse-North Carolina game? And I guess let's start with the quarterback position. It is kind of a mess right now with no Steve Angeli.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that without Angeli, this is an offense that's just going to struggle. They don't have, and I think Fran Brown talked about a little bit in his press conference this week that, you wish he sort of had a plan B offense, right, for when Angeli isn't around, because it's more of an NFL style, and it seems to me like Angeli's really the only one that can run it successfully. So I think that's why you've seen some of the coaching changes, obviously, with the offensive staff this week, trying to sort of reset things a little bit and change the environment probably in the locker room to get some players to play a little bit better and to maximize what you have. And unfortunately for Syracuse, it's, we're at the point of the season. We're in November already. This isn't the time to really try to, remake yourself, especially against a team like Miami who, when they're not beating themselves with dumb penalties and turnovers, is a pretty good football team. So I think, we'll see what Syracuse rolls out on Saturday, but I think they'll show up with Fran Brown's attitude, which is always a good attitude. You're trying to win the game, trying to play better and improve. So we'll see what the Orange trot out there.
We bring up the name Steve Angeli. Fran Brown did say yesterday that he will be back next season. I think most of us expected that all along, but to hear the head coach say it with confidence that he spoke with Steve Angeli, he's coming back, I think that's certainly a good thing for Syracuse fans. Knowing that Angeli will be back and knowing that they were 3-1 with him and he was leading the country in passing yards and what we saw last year with Kyle McCord, what do you think is the expectation, I guess, for Syracuse next year, or has your expectations taken a hit a little bit with Fran Brown and this program, given what you've seen this year after Steve Angeli went out?
No, not at all. I mean, look, they went on the road and they were beating Clemson, and I know Clemson isn't what everybody thought they would be this year, but it's still an impressive road win, and Angeli was obviously a big part of their success early on. I don't know what Syracuse would have been had Angeli been healthy the whole season. Maybe they're a 6-6, 7-5 type team, but they certainly would be better than this. They wouldn't be on a 5-game losing skid like they are now, and I think Fran's done a good job building this thing. I think there's a lot of young players. You look at this offense, a lot of guys that are playing a lot of snaps that'll be back next season or should be back in some capacity. You're going to have to replace some guys on the offensive line, sure, but you've got some young guys that have been getting experience and playing. And so I think there's enough to build around there. And I think defensively, you've seen the emergence of some really talented young guys on that defense at linebacker in the secondary and guys that you can build around. So I think, going into year 3, assuming Fran is back and somebody in college football doesn't come snatch him away from Syracuse, I think the Orange could take a positive step forward in year 3. I would expect that.
Last Syracuse question before we get into Miami and get into the ACC. So you said, let's see what they do as they come down to Miami and try to win a football game. We've been talking about it on the radio show. Fran's in a difficult spot here because he's got, this team really doesn't have a chance to make a bowl game. We know that, right? They've got 3 games left. They would have to win all 3. They're not winning at Miami and at Notre Dame. It's just not going to happen. So do you go with the quarterback in Ricky Collins, who has struggled? He's almost certainly not coming back next year and not part of your future, but given what we've seen, he probably gives you the best chance to win right now. Or do you go with Joe Filardi, who's a freshman? He's here to play lacrosse. He could be a part of your program moving forward. Luke Carney, freshman. The plan is to redshirt him. He's got 1 more game left. He could be a part of your program. What do you do, Manny, if you're Fran Brown, in terms of who do you start? How do you handle this quarterback situation?
Yeah, it's a really tough question to answer because obviously, Ricky doesn't look like he'll be back based on what's happening with Steve and the way Fran's sort of talking about that situation. So, but I also think, as Fran said in his presser, you're also trying to win games, right? There's other guys on this team who could probably benefit from Ricky Collins playing quarterback. So I think it's probably a mix of both. I think you probably start Ricky and see what he does at Miami. You're trying to win games. You're trying to, impress recruits and show them, hey, we're still a competitive football team. And then when things go south, maybe you put in some guys that wouldn't normally be playing. And I think that's the way most coaches. Fran's a smart guy. I mean, he's thinking of the future as well. Like you said, bowl game is unattainable or feels unattainable. The best thing to do is get guys snaps. And so I think you kind of just adapt to how the game goes and you play guys that are hungry and that want to be out there.
All right, let's talk about Miami now. And I think all of us, I know I felt this way. I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth. But once Clemson looked like they weren't Clemson, I thought, well, Miami's clearly the best team in this conference. And, now they've stubbed their toe twice in conference play. Do you have a feel for what their motivation is going into this week? And is it going to be a team that's really mad and wants to get back on track and they want to make up for, the fact that last year Syracuse kept them out of the ACC title game? Or is it a team that's going to kind of throw up their hands and say, well, what do we have left to play for because we're not going to the college football playoff?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, I really don't know. I think, you saw what happened after Carson Beck threw the interception in overtime against SMU. It felt like the defense sort of quit, right? They knew, hey, all these guys needed the field goal and we're losing. And so it kind of felt like they stopped playing with the same intensity they had through the first four quarters. And we know how this game works. The moment guys lose the carrot dangling over their head, they care a lot less about playing. And so it's going to be fascinating to see which Miami team shows up on Saturday. I think there's certainly enough guys on this roster that came back from last year's team that lost at Syracuse that are going to try to motivate themselves with the thought of, hey, we got to get some revenge on these guys. But I also think this is a team that suffered some injuries. C.J. Daniels, who's one of their best receivers, didn't play against SMU. He was out. You lost Mark Fletcher, your starting running back. In that SMU game, he's probably not going to play on Saturday against Syracuse. You're going to be playing some backups in there. So I'm very interested to see. And to me, the biggest telltale sign will be Carson Beck, who clearly was upset with the play calling and not being able to be a little bit more aggressive. I think the interceptions have kind of forced their offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson, to be a little bit more conservative. Are they going to be more aggressive? Are they going to come out and try to set the tone a little differently at home against Syracuse? My bet is they will. Depending on how things go early is how they'll adapt. But I think, Miami's going to try to come out at least early with a lot of positive energy and try to get up big on Syracuse. If that doesn't happen, then who knows what happens as that game progresses. Because all of these kids, to me, can be head cases at times. Yeah.
You bring up Carson Beck, and you said he was clearly not happy with the play calling. And we've seen now after the two losses, it seems like from the outside looking in, maybe a lack of accountability with him. Like after the Louisville game, he threw 4 picks, and he threw his receiver under the bus, on the last one. Said that he didn't run didn't run the right route. I'm paraphrasing, but put it on his receiver, and then putting on play calling. Have you seen any accountability out of him this year, or is that something that is been lacking, and is that something that NFL scouts are maybe going to take notice of?
Yeah, I was there for the presser when he, people said that he threw his receiver under the bus. I didn't get the sense, honestly, listening to him talk, that he was doing that he was throwing him under the bus. I think he was a little bit more just trying to describe what happened, and initially sort of came out that way. Now, the comments about, I just run the plays that they call for me, I think that's a little bit more of a red flag for NFL scouts. I think, they never want to see a quarterback sort of throw the coaches under the bus. So I think that one was a little bit worse than the receiver comment. But look, the bottom line is he's frustrated. He didn't come here to go 6-2 and, be handing the ball off as much as he is. He thought he was going to be throwing the ball more. So I think he's very frustrated. And I think this Saturday, again, it's going to be a huge telltale sign that first half, what kind of attitude Miami comes out with and the way that Carson Beck looks. All
right. ACC championship picture as a whole. Who's ending up there? Is it? I mean, we see Georgia Tech. Is Virginia going to play for the ACC title? I mean, and if you had to make a prediction right now, who's in that game?
It's a great question. There's 3 big games left, the way I look at it. You got Virginia, Duke in Week 12, and then you got Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech, and then Louisville and SMU. That's going to decide the conference. I think if I were to put money on anybody right now, I think it's going to end up being Georgia Tech and Louisville. I think those are the two best teams. I think Virginia's had, a fabulous run, and obviously you got to be happy for their coach, Tony Elliott, with everything he's gone through in his tenure there to be 8-1 right now. But they've won a lot of close games.
Yes.
And sooner or later, the magic runs out. So if you put me on the spot, I think Louisville can go to SMU and win that game. And I think Georgia Tech wins at home against Pittsburgh, and I think those are the two teams playing in Charlotte.
So which team's going to the college football playoff? You think Georgia Tech right now?
Well, I think at this point it's a one bid league, and I think it's whoever wins the ACC championship. So it could be Louisville, it could be Georgia Tech. I think look, Pittsburgh's got a chance as well, right? If they run the table and beat Miami and Georgia Tech and went on the road to Georgia Tech, they'll definitely be in. But I think right now I just expect the Yellow Jackets and Cardinals to be in Charlotte, and I think whoever wins that game is the one team that gets in. Yeah,
in a year where Clemson and Miami were both supposed to be really good, this is kind of a nightmare situation for the ACC. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah, and for Miami especially, this is you look at Florida State, the struggles they've been going through the last 2 years. You look at the Florida Gators; they just fired their head coach. So in your own backyard, you have this opportunity to sort of dominate on the recruiting trail and to send a strong message. Hey, we're a legitimate national title contender. And so, to me, I look at it from that perspective. And for Clemson, Dabo Swinney, this is supposed to be one of his best teams in years. Yeah. And defensively, they're just awful. So a lot of blown opportunities here for the ACC is what it feels like.
Yeah, we had multiple national guests come on our show before the beginning of the season picking Clemson to win the national title. Clemson and Penn State, as a matter of fact. We had two different analysts pick that was going to be the national title game, and it has obviously not worked out like that. Manny, great stuff as always. We love having you on. Thanks for the insight, and hopefully we can do it again down the road.
Sounds good, man. Talk soon.
All right, Manny Navarro joining us here on the show. We'll take a time out. We'll get to today's business on the other side. Ian McIntyre, SU men's soccer head coach, set to join us at 1:30. We're back after this on ESPN.